Hey, Courtney, I'm going to send you over a chapter to this book. Can you read it for us?
The whole chapter?
The whole chapter. It's quick, I promise.
Okay, here it goes. So it turns out It's Perfectly Normal is not a novel. It's a nonfiction book all about sex, as Miss Spencer would say, with pictures. That was a short chapter.
That's it. I told you it was quick.
Welcome to MILF,
I'm Courtney,
and I'm Jennifer.
and we are two moms into literary freedom. Okay, Jennifer, so what book did I just read that chapter from?
So that is from Band's book by Alan Gratz, and it is a middle grade book that has been banned, of course, in Florida.
So hold on a second. It's a book called Ban This Book, and they literally banned it.
Yeah, Moms for Liberty said, okay, bet.
Okay, so I guess that's what we're going to talk about today. Even though, so you say it's for middle grades, which is super confusing because in my head, I'm like middle school, but really the way they do stuff like that is it's middle grade as in like third to fifth.
Yes.
So it's like
It's always
upper.
confusing because when I used to think middle grade, I was like, oh, middle school books. No,
Okay.
it's like chapter books, novels. It's what's between, what do you call these things? Picture books
Yeah.
and
Like,
YA.
okay, cool. So, I mean, I could have gathered that by the fact that they spelled out the word sex. That's a bit
Right.
like third grade thing to do. So yeah, it's basically like a third grade book that was banned or it was like full on banned in Indian River County or something, right?
Yeah, it was removed.
It was
And this was by the Moms for Liberty
school board member.
chair for that county, which she's well known for having the tagline when she met DeSantis of "I have a PhD in porn." That's
Wow.
like that's what she said when she met him.
She was so starstruck by meeting
Yeah,
her hero that she just like choked.
yeah, like she was so proud of it. And
Uh,
I guess that was her way of being funny because
what does that
she
even mean?
bans books with sex in it, and this was one of them.
Hold on, is she saying that she's so good at watching
Well
porn
versed.
that she has a
Right.
PhD? Like, listen, I know porn when I see it, and this book is porn,
But that's basically what she's saying.
even though it's not
And
porn.
and clearly she doesn't have a PhD in it
Yeah,
because she keeps calling books that are not porn porn.
just because it spells out the word sex.
Right. It
And she
mentions
actually
certain
said that. Like, I have a quote from a CNN article that says depicts or describes sexual conduct. Like that was a quote by this woman whose name is Jennifer Pippin. She told CNN that she challenged it because it describes sexual conduct. Does it describe sexual conduct, Jennifer?
no.
So just because it spells out the word sex or talks about books that like sex education books,
Right.
it doesn't mean that it actually is describing sexual conduct.
Right. And literally I think they talk about that one particular book that has been banned.
The one that we said
They're
in the
like,
beginning of the episode.
yes. So
This is
basically,
perfectly
let me
normal.
explain what the book is about, right?
Sure.
It follows Amy Ann, and I believe she is in fourth grade, and she spends all her time at the library. She has like her favorite book that she's always checking out, which is from the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler. I don't know
Sounds
if I'm saying that right. So she's always checking that out. And she goes in one day to check it out, and it's not there.
good. Hmm.
And so she's upset. And Mrs. Jones is a librarian. She like knows her really well because she's always in there. And she has to let her know that the book has been removed from shelves because it's been challenged.
And this is a real book.
This is a real book. All the books that he mentions in this novel have
Hmm.
all been banned within the last 30 years.
Wow.
So it's like a long list. So I don't even have them all. The librarian says, well, there is something you can do about it. You can come to a school board meeting and speak up about why you like this book.
Hmm.
So she goes home, she talks to her parents, and she convinces them to take her. She goes, and then she chokes. She like when it's time for her to talk, she just can't do it and doesn't.
Been
And they
there.
end up banning the book.
Oh, and so they've been, but like as if they wouldn't ban the book if she hadn't choked. Like, I don't know, the way school boards are going, like they'd be like, thank you for your comment, but we know what's better for you, so we're going to ban it.
Right. Exactly.
Even though we're not your parents.
Right.
Which is
Pretty
like,
much.
yeah, the whole hypocritical part of the argument, which is like, I will not co-parent with the government, yet here we are having the government decide what our kids can and can't read.
Which that brings
While,
us to a very good point, because here comes what they highlighted. You know how they have that website that they do like the little book reports on,
mhm,
and that's what they use to challenge books in all the other counties.
mhm.
One of the things that they highlighted as something they took issue with, the very first thing, but it's inappropriate. It isn't inappropriate. It's very appropriate. It's a great book. It's my favorite book. I know, honey, I agree. Nobody but your parents has the right to tell you what books you can and can't read. I promise you. I'm going to fight this, but in the meantime, I have to abide by what the school board decides, or I could lose my job.
That's
They
like,
highlighted that.
yeah,
And I'm like,
they
that's
highlighted.
parental choice right there.
So wait, so on their little book report on things that they found inappropriate or reason to ban was the literal real life nonfiction narrative that people are trying to control what other kids read, even though they're not their parents. So they have a problem with speaking the truth, essentially.
Well, and the thing is, it's their whole like stance that parents are the ones that should decide what their kids are reading.
Yeah,
So,
I know. And that's never made sense to me. It's always been very hypocritical and like indicative that there's something else here at play.
right.
Yeah.
Because then clearly that's not what it's about.
No, it's
Because
not.
anytime you point it out to them, like, hey, that's
It's
fine.
about,
If you as a parent don't want your child to read it, don't let them.
yeah, it's about,
Schools have tons of stuff to allow that, you know.
yeah. It's about having like Little House on the Prairie books in the library. And what's that one about the weird twins put out by the Heritage Foundation?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
The Tuttle
The
Twins.
Tuttle Twins. Okay, yeah.
You're not banning these books because you're trying to protect the children. You're banning these books because you want a certain narrative in our public schools. Even though you're not sending your kids to public schools, you're sending them to
Right.
Christian private schools. But you want this narrative that J.D. Vance keeps talking about, right? Which is like, you need to grow up and marry the opposite sex, be in a heterosexual marriage, and have as many kids as possible. Like, that's what they want. You don't have
That's
to,
exactly it.
your dog is in the background, but I can't hear him, so don't worry about
I'm
it.
muting it because he's like click clack
I
all over.
can't hear it. Yeah, but I do
No?
love your
Oh.
background. I love your purple Halloween theme. If
I'm
you're,
all ready for Halloween.
it looks great. I love it. You got the cobwebs and stuff, and the Halloween tree. Those of you listening, you can, for the low price of $1 a month, you can get these videos and see what we're up to on camera. You can see my nails. Do you see my nails?
Oh, the little ghost nails.
Yeah.
I love it.
Me and my daughter did it.
Cute.
Yep.
You know, I have a thing for ghosts. I love them.
You know, I love the ghosts. I have a ghost pillow and everything. But yeah, speaking of subscribing, it's really helpful even if you just click like and follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps our podcast. So
Yeah.
please take a minute to give us 5 stars. Why not? We're worth the 5 stars. If you've made it this long, I mean, come on.
Right. We earn that.
Yeah, we earned the 5 stars. And you just have to do it once, not every time you listen, just one time. It's super helpful. But yeah, sorry, we just got distracted.
Where were we?
We were talking about the Tuttle Twins. Terrible books that you shouldn't read. No, listen, that
So
goes against
bad.
everything this podcast is saying. If you want to read the Tuttle Twins, go right ahead. We're not saying that the Tuttle Twins should be banned, but we just don't think that the Tuttle Twins should replace all the other books. Like, you should have a wide array of books depending on like what your kids want. Like, it's
Right.
when you go to the children's section of the library, you should have a bunch of different kinds of books based on what the kids like. That's why you see books about Minecraft. Like,
Right.
kids like Minecraft, so there's Minecraft books. Kids aren't into Little House on the Prairie.
No, they're
Sorry.
not anymore. Now it's all the unicorn books, or like the little fluffy kittens or whatever. I can't think of what the titles are, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like a colorful kitten on it, pink
No,
or purple.
I don't know what you're talking about. But
I've seen them at book fairs.
Oh, book fair is happening next week at our school.
Ooh,
Excited.
oh, I missed that.
I know.
Thanks for
I don't think they do
those.
that at middle school anymore, do they? They have to.
They have it. Yeah, they do have.
Okay.
but they just don't want us parents there. We're not,
Yeah.
we're not cool.
I never went, but now it's like so easy to get a book at the book fair. I think you can like send them with like, you can like pay beforehand and say like, oh, my kid has $20 or something, as opposed to like sending your kid on the bus with $20. Oh my gosh.
Right.
I remember doing that and just being so scared when I was a kid, like I was going to lose this money.
Let me
But
tell you, the book fairs are so fun because the kids will have like $1 and they walk up with an armful of like books and journals and stickers and like they have like $100 worth of stuff and they're like, I have $1. And I'm like, oh, okay, we're gonna be here a long time.
you know what I love? When parents donate like $100 to kids who don't have any money for the book fair.
Yeah,
That's
that
so
is sweet.
great. Yeah, I love that. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll give like, I don't know. I don't know how to do that. They should make that a little easier.
Yeah, well, usually you call the school
Mm-hmm.
librarian and they know who needs it,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll distribute it how it needs to be. I will say also they usually have like some money donated from Scholastic
Oh, nice.
for kids as well.
Like you can get one book or something.
Right.
And that's what I tell my kids. I'm like, listen, here's $20. If you come home with an eraser or a journal or a bookmark or a sticker or something, that's fine. But you need to also come home with a book.
Right. Exactly. It's always like you can have a book and something else, which that'll crack me up too, because they'll get like this teeny tiny little book, like for 99 cents. Nothing at the fair is 99 cents, but
yeah.
And then spend like the $19 on random like rock
and erasers. No, it's big stuff now. They have like crazy stuff now. They used to just like erasers and journals and stickers, but now they have like all kind like slime kits.
Yep.
Why? I'm sorry. I disagree we should ban the slime kits.
Yeah. Like nobody wants that.
Why are
no parent wants slime.
Why are we putting our energy into banning books when we could be putting our energy into banning slime?
Exactly. Like the kids love that crap and it gets everywhere. It stains everything. It gets in their hair, in their clothes.
It ruins lives and relationships.
My daughter's always like, can we make slime? Nope.
Ceilings. I have a red spot on my ceiling from when someone
throwing it up.
Threw slime and it stuck to the ceiling. And that was cool. They loved that. But then it didn't come down.
Yeah. Yeah, I cannot stand slime.
We should ban it.
We should ban it. Mom's against slime.
Mass.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess we should talk about the book more.
Oh, yes. Where did I leave off? So her book gets banned, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the mom who banned it, she is like the PTO mom. She's got like money and influence at the school. So she's going around finding more books to pull off shelves. And so Amy Ann is getting upset. The book also touches on Amy Ann's home life as well. It's not just about the book bans. From her perspective, she feels very like out of place at home. And so she's dealing with that. She's dealing with her books being banned from the school. And she decides that she's going to push back, right? Like she read somewhere or like the librarian like was very expressive. Like, if you don't like the way something's going, you have to speak up.
She's grooming her.
Right. She was grooming her.
Her career in political activism.
An advocate for herself.
How dare she?
Horrors. How dare she? So she starts to have this idea, and I think it was kind of based on the book that she loves, but she decides to, as she's talking with other classmates, right? Because the buzz about like the books getting banned, they're like, what's in the books? Like what don't they want us to know? And one kid was probably, like, it's like all the things that
I have that quote here. Let me read it real quick. Why else do you think they banned them? It took a few seconds, but the truth of that finally got through Danny's thick helmet of hair. He nodded. Yeah. I bet they're full of good stuff, like all those channels my parents block on the TV.
Right. So now they're thinking there's all this juicy stuff in these books. And now kids that weren't reading books are like, I want to read this book. What's in it?
Yeah.
And so Danny, I believe it was Danny, he was like, oh, well, you know what? I have this book at home on my shelf. I could bring it in and you can borrow it. And then one of the other girls was like, "Oh, I have this one. I'll bring
Ooh,
it in so you can read it."
it's
So
like an
they start bringing in
underground
their
banned
books.
book.
Amy Ann starts a library because so many kids are like, "Hey, I heard you had this book. Can I borrow it?" And so she starts keeping them in her locker. And basically, she's got her own little banned book library out of her locker.
How proud of your kid would you be if that was your kid?
Oh my God. I'd
I
be all
would,
over Facebook posting like, my daughter did
then you
this.
get her in trouble. You'd get it shut down. You can't be a snitch. Snitches
That's
get
true.
stitches.
That's true. You're right.
I would be
Yeah,
so proud
done
though.
deal.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, right? Oh my God, my kid got other kids reading
Mm-hmm.
what these adults can't do.
Right? Man, that's awesome. But let's go back to the quote about like the TV channels. When was this book written? Because that sounds kind of dated because it's like when I was a kid, my parents blocked TV channels, but you could still like read what it was if you were like brave and feeling naughty. You could like peruse the channels and be like, "Oh, this is Playboy and what's the movie on the Playboy channel or whatever." But now it's like
Well,
TV's like changed so much.
it's from 2017,
Oh, okay.
but I mean, the author is
Right.
probably older.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah,
Because now it's like, and the only reason I'm bringing this up is because kids have, not at maybe not at this age, but like starting at this age, like fifth and sixth grade, they're starting to get cell phones, and all they have to do is like go to YouTube, which is often not blocked. Like parents
right,
don't necessarily block YouTube. Like they have like, safe search on or whatever.
right,
But like you can still get around that. Like there's people put stuff on YouTube that is inappropriate and they know how to get around it,
right.
and maybe it doesn't last forever, but like when kids get wind of that, they kind of, they pass it around and they share it,
Hmm.
Snapchat or whatever channels they have. So my point is it's just so much easier to access age inappropriate stuff on your phones than it is in a book.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and that's the stuff that these people who are so concerned about their kid being groomed or turning into a lesbian or like I don't know what they're concerned about, honestly. Like,
I think they're afraid that these kids are going to, and like realistically, like I like to joke, like, oh, you think if they read about a gay character, they're gonna turn gay.
right.
And I think realistically, what they're worried about is that not that they'll turn gay, but that they'll see a gay person as human, as just a normal thing,
Yeah,
not want to hate them, basically.
I
Like
agree.
they're raising them not to like these people, that these
I
people are
agree.
bad.
Because it's wrong. And most of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time it's based in religion because
Right.
they think like, oh, that's sinful. And like, I mean, there are definitely, we've talked about this before, Christians who know that it's not bad to be gay, right? But going back to JD Vance, because that guy, man, oh, we could talk for hours about him, but like he's pushing this narrative that you have to be in a heterosexual relationship and having kids. And anything that doesn't uplift that in a book is considered evil to them
Right.
or wrong or impure or whatever. And it just doesn't make any sense.
It's dangerous. Like it's like if you don't think how I do 100%, they love to turn this around and be like, "Oh, if we don't think like you hate us."
Uh-huh.
No. You know what? Like okay, yes. But also no.
We hate your ideology. We hate how you're thinking, and we hate that you're
Right.
pushing it on to our beliefs.
Right. We disagree with what you think, but if you want to think it, we can't stop you. It's
And
the
raise
idea
your
that
children to think it too.
yeah, it's the idea that oh, I think this way and so now I need to exclude everything that goes against what I think. I don't want it anywhere in public schools, in
Hmm.
the public. Like they love to say like, "Oh, you can be gay, but just, don't hold hands in public."
Hmm.
Why? You can hold hands in public.
Right. Yeah.
Why
And
do
they
they
love
have
to say
to be
like
treated differently?
you can be an atheist, but don't tell me about it. It's like, well, what
Right.
you tell us about your Christianity all the damn time. But
All
the
the damn
minute
time.
someone says, I don't believe in God, which there are a lot of people, mostly smart people, no offense to, I mean, I'm really not trying to offend anybody, but like if you really think about it and you decide like, hey, I don't believe in God, then you are like labeled as just like a complete like fuck up.
Right. As
Like
evil.
one of my kids, and I want to be very clear that I do not push this on them, but one of them is like, I'm atheist. And I'm like, that's cool. I'm not an atheist, like, is what I said. I'm not totally sure what I am, but like, just so you know, I'm not an atheist. And they're still like, well, I am. And so they let that slip at school. And I was like, probably should, you got to keep that stuff to yourself, in case you want to, because you're going to have these conversations now. And
Right.
then basically, like, they got into this argument with this other kid who was like, now, I kid you not, every single day, this kid, anytime he sees my kid, is like just teasing him and tormenting him about not being a Christian. And in this kid's mind, he thinks he's helping him. He's like
Right.
saving him.
Saving him. Yeah.
And I was like, this is why you don't talk to people about religion. You just change the subject, But like, good on him for my son. It's my son. I tried to
Yes.
his gender, but it didn't work. But good on him for speaking up, and he seems okay with it. And I'm like, okay, that's what you believe, then you're gonna have some interesting conversations.
It's funny because I've had this conversation as well with my son, because you know how he is. He likes to talk.
Yeah.
And so clearly, yes, I am a huge influence on him. Like, my husband and I will get into an argument about it because we don't always agree on a lot of things. And I don't care who knows this. This is not a
I mean,
secret.
I think that is true for a lot of relationships.
So, but I'm very vocal about how I feel about things, especially inside my home. Like, this is what I tell him all the time. Like, he's like, yeah, but you don't have to say it. I'm like, listen, home is my space. This is where I can be me.
You can say
I am
whatever
not
you
going
want.
to, right. I don't need to censor myself here. Like, yes, I do it in public because it's not the place for me to be walking around going, oh, look, that guy has a MAGA hat. He's a fucking idiot. I keep that to myself because
Sure.
it's just rude, right?
Right.
But in my own house, if I see an idiot with a MAGA hat, I'm going to call him that. Sorry, not sorry.
You're not allowed in my house if you have a MAGA hat on.
So little things like that. So I'm very vocal. Like, if I'm watching the news or I'm repeating something that I heard that happened or something, and I'll just be like, oh, look at what this idiot said today, Probably not the nicest way to go about it, but that is how I am. And so my kid picks up a lot of that.
Same.
But then I told my husband, I'm like, he's like, yeah, but I'm like, that's not grooming. He's my kid. I am supposed to influence him.
Yeah.
I tell him at the same time, like, you don't have to agree with what I say, but feel free to come back to me with like some research that you did on it, and we can discuss it.
My son will often say, like, he'll say, like, we'll be driving the car and he'll see like a political sign on the side of the road and he'll be like, Mom, are we voting for them? And I'm like, you're not. I'm like, you're not voting for anybody, first of all. And second of all, and so like sometimes he'll be like, no, they suck, right? And then he'll be like, okay, they suck. And I'm like, but do you know why they suck? And he's like, no, I don't. I'm like, okay, well, this is why I think they suck. And he's like, well, I think, when did it happen? It was, he didn't know who JD Vance was. And he's like, why do you hate JD Vance? And I'm like, well, one, he's Trump's running mate. And he's like, oh, okay, he didn't know that. And two, he doesn't believe that women should be able to, do what they want with their own bodies, which is a true statement. Like, I'm not saying a false. So I see that the other side of the coin in the other car with the Christian mom would say something like, well, Kamala Harris thinks that women should be able to kill babies. Like, that's what she could say. And that's, you could argue there is some truth to that, even though it's completely widely taken out of context. But like, it is not taken out of context when you say that politicians are trying to take away women's reproductive rights. Like, that is a 100% true statement that has led to deaths of women, which we talked about. And I want to say there was something that an update to that woman who died in Georgia because she was denied care for.
That left the 6-year-old behind.
Yeah, and she had a 6-year-old, and now that 6-year-old doesn't have their mom anymore, and it's just one of the worst stories ever. And it's not a single story, like there are multiple stories like that happening. But as a result of that, a judge ruled that it is unconstitutional. And now there are no longer 6-week abortion bans in Georgia. Now it's 20 weeks, which is
22 weeks, I think.
Okay, which is still not great, but it's, it's way better than what it was before, because you don't even know you're pregnant at 6 weeks.
Right.
So, I mean, how do you know you're pregnant even if you're trying to get pregnant? you don't take a test until 9 weeks. Like, you're like, well, because if you take a test too early, it doesn't show, then it's a false negative and you don't know. So like, no one's testing their pregnancies at 6 weeks. They don't know.
No.
So it's
You
just,
don't even realize, like most women don't realize till like, shit, it's been 2 months since when did I last get my period? And you're like trying to do mental math and
yeah. That is why now my son doesn't like JD Vance, because he knows.
now he knows.
Yeah.
Right. But that's so funny because TJ will do the same thing. That's his name. It's out there now. I'll be watching a video of like maybe like a debate or something someone's having or something someone's saying.
Mhm.
And of course, like they're my shadows. They're always around me. They're always on top of me. So I'm watching, and before I know it, he's like, "Do we like them?" Right?
Yeah.
Like he's listening. He's like, "Do we like them?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well, did you like what they said? What did you think?" And a lot of times I'm like, "I'm not sure if I like them yet. I'm trying to listen to what they're saying so that I can determine if I like them."
And that's the difference between us and them, essentially, is like, we can say, yeah, I don't like them, but here's why, and here's why the other people do like them. And then they make their own decision. I actually have a friend who is just like us, very, liberal, to use, I don't know, for lack of a better word, believes in women's reproductive rights, blah, blah, blah. And they have yeah, sure. They have a 17-year-old daughter who now has a bunch of Republican friends. And this person is very outspoken and like shares their opinion with their kid. But now the kid is going in the opposite direction. And it's because the extreme MAGA right is grooming her and is like taking advantage of her adolescent thought processes and is like blah blah blah, and the parent is just like, well, I mean, they're making their own decisions, and I'm sitting over here like, no, tell her she can't hang out with them anymore, and she's like, friends, I can't do that, like, and I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm gonna do if that ever happens to me. But the point is, she's not controlling what her kid does and thinks. She's letting her kid make her own decisions.
Yeah.
So, but anyway,
that's a hard one.
Yeah.
That's a hard one.
Yeah.
Because, that's where I would start to freak out a little.
Yeah. But back to the book that I keep interrupting you on explaining. One of the books that they talk about is This Is Perfectly Normal, which is what we said in the beginning of the episode, right? And yes. I've read that book with my kids, and they describe it in the book, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, this is what Pippins, the Moms for Liberty lady, had a problem with, right? Because it describes sexual content, right? But it's really just like, when you're 12, you start to grow breasts, and boys have testicles, and wear deodorant because you'll start to stink. Like, that's what the book is about.
Education.
Yeah.
Sex ed, what you learn during sex ed class.
Yeah. And there's just a book with pictures. It has pictures. Oh my God. And so that's what really pissed off Pippins, which I just think that's a hilarious name. I love it. I wish I liked her because I think that's a cool name.
Right. A cool name for a not so cool person.
Yeah.
There, and that was such a short part of this story. Like, it didn't matter.
One of the books that Amy was like peddling.
This was more about Amy Ann like deciding like, hey, this is not okay. I don't like, which I think this is what they had an issue with, right? That a child was like, this is not cool. I'm going to stand up for something and, start my little banned book library in my locker. They did steal books from the library at one point because they had removed the books, right? And the librarian had it in the back room.
Oh, yeah.
And so they needed more books for their library. And then so she did justify it like, well, books are meant to be shared. And these are library books, so they belong to the public. So we're not stealing them, we're borrowing them.
There you go.
And using it for its intended purpose, which is to allow others to check them out.
That's a great example of asking for forgiveness rather than permission.
Right.
And getting into good trouble. Like,
right.
I've had this conversation with so many of my kids. I'm like, you'll never be punished by us if you're getting into good trouble. And you just need to know the difference between bad trouble and good trouble.
Right.
Good trouble is like, if you see a teacher and you're calling them out on something that they're doing that's wrong, and you get in trouble, quote, trouble for that at school, like, we'll get you out of it.
Right. Exactly. Or if you're
That's a
sticking
hard
up for a
thing.
bully, not for a bully, for some kid being bullied,
Yeah,
I got your back,
exactly.
100%.
Yeah. That's a hard thing for kids to learn. And I think that this book would do a great job, or does a great job, sounds like it would do a great job at like kind of giving kids that perspective, which is why Monster Liberty hates it.
Yeah. So the book banner, her son is in her grade. And so she's like, ugh, there goes that kid, right? Like, I can't stand him. And the kid's always like staring at her.
Mm.
And she thinks it's because he hates her, right? Like, he's an artist. Let me backtrack a little. He's an artist. He likes to draw. He's constantly drawing. So she dislikes him because one time he drew her as a mouse. He drew like everyone in his class as different animals.
Oh, that's cute.
And he drew her as a mouse, like reading a book or something. And she was just really offended that he drew her as a mouse. And then she has to work with him on a project about like the Constitution. So there is some learning about the Constitution in the book. They talk about the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, you know, things like, did they talk about the Second Amendment? They might have skimmed over that one.
Okay.
But like each kid had to pick like an amendment to like discuss and draw a graphic for. And of course they chose the First Amendment.
Right.
And so he drew like certain things for him and stuff. And she hated having to work with him because she doesn't like him.
She associated him with her mom, or his mom, who banned her favorite book.
Yeah.
And threw her as a mouse, which, okay.
So yeah, she already had like reservations about him. And then now his mom banned her book. And so she's always trying to hide like her banned book library from him and stuff. And at one point he's like, hey, listen, and he's always trying to like make friends with her. Like you can tell in the book that he's like trying to be friendly with her, and she's like cutting him off. And so he finally tells her like, hey, I heard you have this book and I really want to read it. And she decides like, okay, I'm going to let him borrow it. And after she lets him borrow it, her banned book locker gets discovered and like shut down. So she thinks it's him. It wasn't him, you know? So there is like a plot going on in the background and like drama and a little kid, you know? It's cute, it really is a cute book.
Yeah.
I bought this book 2 years ago, maybe. And I tried reading it with my kids, but like my kids were like, you know, they weren't into having story time with me. They wanted to read something else. I was like, okay, fine. I'm not gonna force them to read something they don't want to read.
Why not?
So I let it go and I never finished it. But then when they finally went to go ban it, or, you know, I was like, let me finally read it back to back to see what's the big deal. And I thought it was a really, really cute book.
So you bought it before it was even banned in Florida?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
I bought it like a couple of years ago. A year ago, 2 years ago.
You mean to tell me that you actually don't force your kids to read inappropriate books? Because
apparently not. Yeah. I know.
Did you know that that's what they're saying about people like us, is that we force them to read porn?
We force them to read.
Yeah, not just read. We force them to read the worst of the worst books, and we traumatize them and turn them into gay penguins.
Which is hilarious coming from the group that is constantly forcing their kids to read a book. The Bible.
The Bible, that's right. Which is
like miss me with that bullshit, because you guys are shoving the Bible down your kids' throat constantly.
Sexual assaults, lots of, you know, consensual and non-consensual sex, incest. Bible's chock full of all that stuff.
Violence. Don't they have like genital mutilation in there too?
I don't know. I'm not an expert in the Bible. I just know about the driving the tent stake through someone's head because the woman did it because God told her to.
I'm gonna use that next time my husband gets mouthy with me. God told me.
Oh man.
What is it? My God is a woman, so
I love it.
So I was talking about Trey, that's his name, and then his mom, who is the book banner, right? So now she thinks that he's involved and she's like mad at him. There is another kid in this story who is like a side character, isn't mentioned a lot, but he's always been like a very nice kid. He's super into Star Wars. And one of the times she gets called down to the office, she's called down with him. And then he went in smiling. It came out like really upset from the meeting with the principal. Later on, she keeps talking about him like suddenly like getting into arguments with everybody and like fighting with other kids, which is so out of character for him. And then she finds out that what happened was his grandmother passed away.
Oh.
And so she's now like this little mini librarian, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, oh, I have this book and I can't remember what book it was in my library. And I think it'll really help you like come to terms with some of what's going on and help you deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
She gave it to him. He read it. It did help him the way like she wanted it to help him. And that boy told his parents about the book, right?
Is
Not
this
to snitch. It was in a
oh.
good way. And the parents were ecstatic with like how it helped his kids, how it helped their son.
Aw.
So they reached out to the principal in a positive way, like to be like, this is amazing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I love this. This was great. And that's how they discovered her banned book library.
Okay.
So it wasn't, so inadvertently, he snitched on her, but it was meant in a positive way.
Right.
So they shut down her banned book locker, and they end up going to a school board meeting. These kids come up with a plan, right? Because now they have like a little gang of kids like all trying to save these books. They come up with a plan, which is funny because we've kind of talked about this before, of you know what? If they're going to ban books, we're going to challenge every book in the library.
Wow. And that's what
So,
we've said that before. Yeah.
right, we've said that before. So they go and they make copies of all the like challenge forms,
Uh-huh.
and they go to the library and like all secretively take turns
Oh
bringing
my
stacks of
God.
books in and like quickly writing it out.
Oh, see, I see it right here. One of the books that they challenge is Goodnight Moon. It's a quote. It says, "Goodnight Moon, the mouse in the room is a health code violation. The red balloon is a choking hazard. And look at this picture of the illustrator on the back. He's holding a cigarette. That encourages kindergartners to think smoking is cool." So they banned Goodnight Moon
Yes,
on that basis. Oh my gosh, that's so smart.
it was really smart. Like they found like any reason, like they're like, okay, well, if you just need a reason to ban it,
Mm-hmm.
let's come up with any reason, like make it as
Okay.
ridiculous as possible.
But this was flagged by Moms for Liberty and the Book Looks people who are, dedicated to banning books like this. They had a problem with the Goodnight Moon quote. Well, I don't get it. It's because the word cigarette was in it, I guess, or smoking or something.
Right.
So what? It's just so embarrassing. Like that.
It's embarrassing for them. Like this whole book is calling them out. And I think that's really what their issue is, It'd
Uh-huh.
be interesting to see though if now there's an actual ban on that
Goodnight Moon.
yes, to see if they actually copied their reasoning.
That's crazy.
So now they have all these forms and they're ready to go to the school board meeting, right? And she's like, this time I'm going to speak. I'm not going to be shy and I'm going to speak up. And I think by this point, she's discovered that Trey wasn't the one who snitched on her and that it was the other kid, because the other kid came up and he was like, I'm so sorry I got your thing shut down. And he explained what happened, right? So they end up working with Trey and they have like this little organization. The book is really cute. Like I just have to say, it is a really cute book. They start like they have a president, a vice president, a chairperson, like a committee for these books.
Mm-hmm.
And for the library basically that they're running. So they bring him onto the board of directors basically. They got another kid to make fake book covers for them. So
Wow.
that the kids, because one kid like dropped the banned book,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone like stopped and was like, oh my God, they're going to discover this banned book in the middle of the
Oh,
cafeteria.
that's so funny.
So they started making like fake book covers to cover the books so that the kid could be reading in class, But instead of ban this book, it would say something like hippity hoppity school,
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I used to do that. I used to have like a cover, or I would take like the book jacket off of the books I was reading if I was like at the airport and I didn't want people to know what I was reading.
Right.
Like Clan of the Cave Bear or something like that. I don't know why it's so stupid in hindsight, but like I didn't want people to know what I was reading.
Well, yeah, no, I get it. And I still see that happening now. Like people are like, some of these books especially when they have like a half-naked man on it.
Yeah.
Like where it's very obvious that it's like a smuttier book. And
Hmm.
you're like in the middle of like a grocery store, or I don't know where you
Right.
read, coffee shop,
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
grocery store,
You
with
don't
this
want to
like
be judged
right.
by the cover.
Personally, I'm like, judge away. I'm having a good time over
Right.
here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. Well, yeah, it
So
does
that's
sound like a really good book. I think I'm gonna have or give it to my oldest to read because
yes.
I don't think she knows about this book. She would
I was
love
gonna
it.
say I think she would like this book.
Yeah, I'll have to get
Yeah.
it then.
And I will say I think my kids would have liked it, except in the very beginning it is a little bit of a slow start to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it after that it gets really good.
Mm-hmm. It sounds good.
Um
Has it
so
won any awards, I wonder? Yeah, it actually has like a lot of awards. It
really,
was, yeah, 2018 North Carolina Battle of the Books, 2019 White Nile Award, 2020 Connecticut Nutmeg Book Award winner. I mean, I don't know what a lot of these are, but like there's one, two, three, four, there's like seven other ones. Oh, it was translated into Spanish and it got the 2022 Book Ban of Venezuela finalist. Sorry, Book
ooh,
Bank of Venezuela. It was translated into German and won an award there too. So yeah, it's pretty well known and it was translated into Italian and Bulgarian.
wow.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
At the end of the book, they go to the school board meeting. She finds out because she asks the librarian, like, how do you keep track of like books? The librarian doesn't know what she's up to. So she just thinks she's wanting to know how the process works of checking out books and how they used to do it before they had computers, right?
Hmm.
Because she wants to learn how to keep track of her books. And she's like, oh, I think I have like these older books that still have, you remember how in the back of the book, it would have like a little sleeve and they would have the name and who checked it out and,
Oh
when to give it
yeah.
back.
Uh-huh.
She's like, yeah, so, we used to do it this way. And so she starts collecting those little jackets. And as she's going through it, in one of the banned books that she has, some of them still had that because they're, older books. And she realizes that the book banner, the mom,
Hmm.
had checked out one of these books and
Oh.
like repeatedly, like this was like clearly one of her favorite books. They show up to the school board meeting. All these parents are there. She's made it on the news because her like banned book library has made it to the news. Mrs. Jones, the librarian, has been fired because
Oh no.
they think she
God.
was, involved in the banned book library.
Hmm.
And so she shows up to this meeting. She's feeling like really guilty too over that, but she still wants to stand up for the books. And at the school board meeting, you know how they give you 3 minutes, right?
Hmm.
And so that all the kids are there, a bunch of parents have shown up, everyone's there, news stations are there, and she goes up to the podium and they're like, well, you only have 3 minutes or, however time. And she starts talking and they're like, well, okay, we have to cut you off. And
Hmm.
then the next kid is like, oh, well, I'm next. And I concede my time to her.
Oh.
And so she was like, just FYI, we're all going to do that. So you might as well just let her keep talking.
Oh, I didn't know. I wonder if you can actually do that.
I think you can.
That's cool. I guess it depends on like each school board and their own rules.
Yeah.
It's cool if you can do that. But that's cool. So she kept talking.
She lets them have it respectfully. And
Hmm.
then she tells, and I did like this about this book. I think this is really important. It's not just like, oh, these books are banned and the book banners are horrible. She actually said, like, I can understand where she's coming from. Kind of what we were talking about. It gives the other person's perspective a little and like empathy for them.
Hmm.
She's like, well, I can understand how she feels, or I can understand why she wants to do this. And she addresses her during the school board meeting, and she's like, Miss, I can't name her name, Miss Ma'am, like, I know that you think these books are bad for us. I know that you think you're doing good for us,
Hmm.
but it's not your job to, decide this. Like we each have our parents who can
Hmm.
advocate what we can and can't read. She's like, but I want to remind you, this book you used to check out constantly. And like they have it like as an evidence and like, the whole the
That's so
gasp.
funny. I can't believe that.
It's a really cute book. So in the end, I think they have all the books brought back.
So it has a happy ending, maybe
I
not
think it does.
not a completely accurate ending, but a happy ending.
Yeah. And then also her parents, because she always used to just agree with everything, like okay, like, oh, let your sister have it. Okay. She finally speaks up and tells her parents like how she's feeling.
Oh, that's right. So she like learned advocacy.
Yes. Yeah. And then her parents are fully behind her. Like they go to the school board meeting and they promise to like make changes and so like she ends up getting her own room at the end. A lot of stuff happens in the book. It's not a long book, but it's a really cute book.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited to have my kids read it, or at least one out of the three will read it. I got one reader. That's good.
Right. Same here. 1 out of 4.
Well, yeah, I mean, speaking of reading, the test scores in Florida, like it's, if 1 out of 4 of your kids read and 1 out of 3 of my kids are readers, like that's no surprise really that test scores are continuing to drop. I think we're like 47th in the state overall. And yet here we are going to court about pronouns, preventing trans students from playing sports when we really should be focusing on how we can get kids to read more, not less.
Right.
They're not good. The Tuttle Twins are not good books.
No. And on that, I forgot to mention this. If Tuttle Twins, their books are educational, right? That's their purpose, right?
Yes.
And the problem is like librarians have an obligation to remove books that are not factual. So if it's a book that is based on facts and the facts are incorrect, they're supposed to remove misinformation.
But it's interesting, if you Google it, the Tuttle Twins like website and all the people that advocate for these books are all over the internet, scrubbing the internet, making it so that it's not like a conspiracy book. Like it's really hard to get an accurate read on it. Like if you were just some mom who didn't know about the Tuttle Twins, like you might be tricked into buying them.
Right.
And then later be like, wait a second. This is not right.
And see, that's exactly it. Their books are based on conspiracy theories. So I can see why a librarian or a media specialist would be like, yeah, this is not a good collection for our library. Not because it's not offering a variety of books, but because this is stating something as a fact that isn't. So essentially, Bandit's book by Alan Gratz is a great read. Highly recommend. I think parents should read it. I think kids should read it. And it gives a good perspective of like how these books are being banned and what we can do to help.
And how it just starts with like one mom or who, not even a mom, an adult that's just like, hey, I don't like this book, so I'm going to take it away for everybody.
Yeah.
It's a fiction. It's a work of fiction, but it's really realistic.
Very realistic.
Do you have anything else you want to add?
Don't ban books.
Ban bigots.
That's all.
This episode has been engineered and mixed by your hosts, Jennifer Mendoza and Courtney Green.
Thanks for listening, and be sure to follow us at MILF for Books. That's MILF, the number 4, books, on TikTok, Instagram, Threads, and X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it.
And don't forget to help the show by rating us wherever you get your podcasts.